Hello everyone, I'm Jen and I make useful English Lit study videos on Shakespeare, poetry, fiction, literary ideas and more to help you become a literary expert. So if that sounds like exactly what you need, then make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you never miss out on my future weekly videos. So in this video today, we're thinking about whether or not you should study English Lit as a university degree or just a literature degree in general. Now, I think that this is one of the more divisive topics among students and parents because there's this popular perception that spending 3 to 4 years of university doing a subject like English or literature, when people apparently do nothing else but read books, write about reading books, and for some, drinking a lot of booze while reading books, is all kind of a raw waste of time, especially when it doesn't really seem to lead to any clear job prospects or a guaranteed paycheck. So, as you can probably tell, being Asian and Chinese, the fact that I had wanted to do a degree which wasn't law or medicine was sacrilege in my family. And for some reason, though, I was headstrong enough for my parents to eventually give in, albeit very reluctantly for a very long time. So the way that my parents saw it was if I could have studied a subject which would be more immediately employable, like law, then I should have opted for that over something which was purely academic and non-vocational, like English or, God forbid, something like philosophy. And it's now been more than a decade since my first day at uni. I know I feel really old, but all I can say is that I am actually so glad that I had chosen a degree that I was truly passionate about, and that I'm really grateful as well to my parents for being so supportive despite our initial differences. Even before we dive into the question of whether or not you should pick English as your undergrad degree, I want us to take a step back and ask a more fundamental question, and that is, what is the point of going to university? Now, different people will have different answers to what they want to get out of higher education, so it's important that you take some time to think about your own reason for going to university in the first place. Do you care more about getting a job qualification so that you can graduate and work as soon as possible? Or is it more important that you gain an opportunity for academic exploration and intellectual stimulation? Now, of course, these goals I just mentioned are not mutually exclusive. And frankly, a lot of people, including myself, will tell you that whatever technical knowledge they had learned at university didn't really end up being directly relevant to whatever jobs they ended up doing after. And also, and this might come across a bit counterintuitive to some, but university wasn't actually originally designed to be a place for vocational training. Its genesis was born out of a desire for scholarly discussion. There were, and there still are, actual vocational training schools or apprenticeship opportunities for building up practical skills, and much of academic study, as some of you would already know, is theoretical anyway. Personally, I think that a good way to view the value of a university education is that this is a special period of time in your life where your priority can be nothing else but intellectual fulfillment, when you can legitimately spend as much time and energy as you want to focus on a life of the mind, so to speak, and not really have to worry too much about real-world concerns, even though some of us, myself included, would have taken on part-time jobs while studying for our degrees. This is an incredible luxury and privilege to have, which, having graduated from university for a good few years now, is something that I can say doesn't really come by once you enter the workforce. So with that, here are my 3 reasons for why I think you should really consider doing a literature degree at university. So let's dive straight into it. Now, having worked full-time for almost a decade since graduating from university, I've come to realize that the most important skill in life isn't some technical know-how or professional knowledge, but the ability to understand and communicate with different people. What do people really need and want? Why do they behave in certain ways? What motivates and repels them? What's their story? And how do their experiences shape their personality and character? So your ability to engage with these questions upon every encounter with an individual is going to be key to your success and fulfillment in life. And that's especially so in the age of advanced Gen AI, where chatbots have become these encyclopedic, hyper-efficient workers with an amount of knowledge and a rate of productivity that far surpasses even the most knowledgeable and speedy human worker. And those questions that I've just mentioned are essentially questions we ask with every novel and play that we read for English Lit, as we try to get inside the heads of fictional characters and consider how their physical, emotional, and psychological qualities mold their behaviors, and the implications, of course, of their actions on others and the world. By the way, guys, if you find this video helpful so far, I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my top grade lit study content going forward. I'd also encourage you to check out my membership program by clicking the join button below if you want exclusive access to members only study content and make special video requests. I'll see you there. So for instance, we see close up the possible missed opportunities in love if one harbors too much pride or prejudice in Austen's classic romance, the fatal dangers of letting hubris and excessive ambition get to our heads from Macbeth and Julius Caesar's missteps, and the capacity for senseless cruelty and violence that dysfunctional institutions and environments could foster in either William Golding's Lord of the Flies or even something like Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now, these may all be fictional narratives, but they are just as prevalent in real life and the society that we live in, which is why getting to know a variety of complex characters, personalities, and how they behave in different scenarios can be a really useful primer on the human jungle out there that we have to face every day. Now, with the quick rise of generative AI tools like ChatGPT, people could very well get away with not having to write a single sentence anymore nowadays, because GPT can spout out eloquent sentence after eloquent sentence in the matter of seconds. But I would argue that it's precisely because of AI's rise that it's become even more important that we hone our own writing skills. Because, and here's the catch, the point of writing well isn't actually the writing itself. It's the thinking process that goes into producing genuinely good writing. So the bottom line is that without clear thinking, there is no fluent writing. So if we choose to bypass the writing process and outsource it all to AI, what we're doing is essentially letting our brains rust and giving up on our capacity for critical, analytical, and deep engagement with ideas and the world. And frankly, there's no better subject for a rigorous training in thinking through writing than an English or literature degree, because the entire degree is centered on thinking deeply about people, ideas, and our world, and then expressing all of those ideas through the medium of writing. It's not enough to just have great ideas. We need to be able to communicate them in a way that others understand, and better yet, be moved and persuaded by. This is why doing a degree like English Lit is like a boot camp in leadership training. The core skills that we develop, like communication, empathy, and persuasion, are the fundamental traits of all great leaders in history. After all, you don't hear people celebrating Mandela, Gandhi, and Clinton for the fact that they were lawyers by training, but for the incredibly moving speeches and their talent for understanding and connecting with people from all walks of life. In fact, if you take a look at history and even the world around us, a lot of successful leaders in fields like finance, politics, and business had majored in English Lit or a humanities degree for their undergrad, like Hank Paulson, the US Secretary of Treasury and Goldman Sachs investment banker, who led the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis rescue mission, Anne McCullough, former Xerox CEO, Michael Eisner, former Disney CEO, and many, many other executives that I personally know had actually majored in either English or another lit or humanities degree. So having worked in the corporate world for almost a decade now, I can confidently say that those who eventually get up to the top of the ladder and become senior executives didn't really get their power and position because of their technical competence, but more so because of their sharp and deep insights into what makes people tick. And it's their strong people skills that enable them to manage such large and diverse groups of personalities in an organization. Because ultimately, leaders are not the people who execute. They are the ones who can get others to execute for them. So to do that, you need to know how people work and what makes them tick, which is exactly the knowledge that we gain from reading novels and poetry and watching plays, because these texts capture human emotions and social dynamics. So don't buy into this misconception that your university degree must be directly related to your future career. And besides, careers today could take on many different shapes, forms, and directions throughout your life. And even more ludicrously, please do not buy into the idea that just because you studied something like English at university, you're destined to either become a teacher or a McDonald's server for life. There's nothing wrong with either job, by the way, but my point is that an English degree is not something that boxes you in, but rather, on the contrary, it opens you up for a broad avenue of career paths and life possibilities. So my final point might sound a bit flippant or even privileged to some, but I think it's something that is actually not acknowledged enough. The years you spend at university are probably the only time in your life where you can legitimately do nothing or next to nothing, but just sit there and think, read, write, and say whatever the heck you want to say within limits, without having to worry about paying a lot of bills, offending the wrong people at the office, or fixing a leaky pipe in the house. So the university environment is truly a place for a life of the mind, which is also why it's got the not so flattering moniker of being an ivory tower, because a lot of people in there, especially, academics, aren't too interested in the grubby aspects of real life, preferring instead to live inside an intellectual bubble and conversing with each other in their own academic tongue. Of course, my caricature is a bit tongue-in-cheek and a sweeping generalization, but the more important point I'm trying to make here is that if you care enough about intellectual stimulation, then your university years are going to be a prime time and opportunity for doing just that. Because trust me when I say that once you graduate and enter the workforce, there's going to be much less time, energy, and bandwidth for this sort of stuff. And this is likewise the case even if you choose to go into academia and do a PhD and become a professor or something, which is much more about administrative politics than actual academic work, based on, what I've heard and observed of my professor friends. And there's probably no better subject than literature for you to indulge in guilt-free thinking, reading, and writing, which I stress are activities that 95% of people in the real world today just don't have much time or energy for. And yet the tragic paradox is that what our social media saturated world needs more than ever right now is some deep thinking, concentrated reading, and clear writing, which means strong thinkers, readers, and writers are going to be fewer and thus more premium and in demand in the future. And you want to be these premium and in-demand people. So if you develop these skills at university, you're going to win out in the long term as more people in this digitally fragmented and attention deficit world lose their ability to think critically and express themselves eloquently. And there you have it, guys. Those are the 3 reasons for why I think you should seriously consider studying a degree like English Lit at university, or even just a literature and humanities degree. Please know that I am not devaluing other subjects and certainly not saying that choosing your degree out of vocational reasons is invalid. We each have our own values and motives for doing things. So I respect whatever choice you decide to make, especially if you are clear on why you're making a certain choice and not just doing something because, your peers are doing it too, or that your parents tell you to do it and you don't know better. I also understand that not everyone has the freedom or luxury to just pick whatever they want to study because there are other life and practical circumstances to consider. This video is really just my perspective on why studying literature or humanities is a great idea for those who are already interested in these subjects, as someone who has studied the subject herself and believes that she has thrived as a result of making that choice. So for your next video, I recommend that you watch my explainer on the differences between an excellent GCSE, A-level, and university English essay. If you're interested in more university-related English content like this video, please comment below and let me know what other topics you'd like to hear from me in the future. As always, please hit that thumbs up button below if you found this video helpful in any way so that the YouTube algorithm will spread it to other passionate lit learners like yourself and that you can encourage me to keep making these videos for you. Please subscribe if you haven't already and switch on that bell notification so you don't miss out on any of my future weekly videos. And finally, feel free to join my membership program if you want exclusive video requests and essay review perks. You can check that out by clicking the join button. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.